Nightroot Manor, Part 2. Scout stepped cautiously into a corridor that seemed to stretch forever in both directions. The air was heavy, thick with age, and each of his paw steps echoed long after he stopped moving. Painted portraits lined the walls, some regal, some stern, others too shadowed to make out their faces. Their eyes seemed to follow him. A chill breeze drifted through the cracks, carrying faint whispers that curled along the walls like smoke. The relic at Scout's chest pulsed faintly, the only light breaking the endless dark. He could feel the house breathing, slow, deliberate, and aware of him. The hall wasn't just long, it was alive. Reached the base of the grand staircase, its steps groaning as though they carried centuries of secrets. The flickering candlelight cast long, twisting shadows that crawled along the walls. Clutching the relic to his chest, he placed a cautious foot on the first step. A whisper slithered down from above, soft, haunting, impossible to understand. His fur bristled halfway up. He froze. The banister ahead rippled in the candlelight. And for a heartbeat, a shadowy hand gripped the wood before vanishing into smoke. At the top of the staircase, Scout pushed open a heavy door and found himself in a tall, circular chamber. A massive cracked mirror towered against the wall, its surface shimmering like water. As he stepped closer, ghostly shapes appeared inside. Ash, Thistle, Willow, and Bristle, their paws pressed desperately against the glass. Scout gasped, gripping the relic as the mirror rippled and dark shadows began to bleed into the room. Scout stepped into a chamber draped in gloom, where flickering lanterns struggled to keep the darkness at bay. From the walls and corners came whispers, soft at first, then curling louder, voices that didn't belong to anyone alive. He froze, the whispers tangled with his own fears, weaving cruel doubts and secrets into the air. But as he held the relic closer, its faint glow steadied him. Scout's eyes darted around, shadows twisted into faces, and ghostly hands stretched toward him. Still he stood firm, his breath shaky but his grip unyielding. The house was trying to break him, but Scout was beginning to understand. Courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was walking forward despite it. Whispers fell silent, leaving Scout alone in a stillness heavy with dust and time. Then with a groan of ancient gears, part of the hall shifted, revealing a forgotten study. He stepped inside, whiskers twitching, his small form dwarfed by shelves sagging with crumbling tomes. At the center stood a great oak desk, its drawers cracked open, leaking a faint and otherworldly glow. Scout crept closer, paws brushing aside cobwebs as he pulled the drawer wide. Within lay a map unlike any he had ever seen. Its lines shimmered and shifted as though the paper itself was alive. Leaning over, his eyes widened as symbols began to burn upon the parchment. A door, a music note, a feather, and a book, each pulsed softly tied to a chamber within the manor. The grand hall stretched long and dim, lined with portraits whose painted eyes seemed to follow Scout's every move. Flickering candlelight carved long shadows, and a faint whisper floated through the air, like the breath of the house itself. Scout paused, ears twitching, clutching the relic close. His eyes darted left and right as the whispers grew louder, curling around him in voices that almost sounded like his friends calling out or mocking him. Scout's face hardened with resolve as one of the portraits leaned forward unnaturally, its painted lips twisting into a grin. The shadows pressed closer, and Scout realized that this was not just his imagination. It was the house itself, alive and testing him. The grand hall groaned as the chandelier above began to sway, its crystals rattling like bones. Candlelight flickered wildly, streaking the shadows across the cracked floor. Scout froze beneath it, his tiny frame dwarfed by the looming weight above. Flames blazed unnaturally bright, shards of broken glass trembling as if caught in some unseen breath. Scout raised a paw to shield his eyes, the relic glowing faintly at his side, though it offered little comfort against the piercing glare. His paw gripped the carved wooden railing tightly, claws digging into the worn surface. The house seemed to whisper promises from one path, warnings from another. The chandelier still trembled above its groaning chains, reminding him that choice could not be delayed forever. Scout stepped back into the forgotten study. The smell of old parchment and candle wax filled the room, a place long abandoned, yet strangely awake. On a desk sat a quill and parchment, untouched by decay. Runes glimmered faintly across the surface, whispering secrets older than Nightroot itself. Scout's paw trembled as he brushed away the dust, the relic at his chest beginning to hum in answer. When the quill lifted from the desk, hovering as though guided by unseen hands, he froze. A whisper echoed through the room, his name. Then, as if pulled by some ghostly urgency, the quill began to move. Ink flared gold across the page, scrawling three haunting words that glowed through the darkness. Bring them back. Bristle crept through rows of towering shelves, dust swirling like tiny ghosts. Every whisper he thought he heard was met with silence until the books themselves began to exhale. Their pages rustled without wind. One tome on a distant table glowed faintly, its spine pulsing like a heartbeat. When he touched it, the candle flames bowed inward. The cover creaked open by itself, and words began to carve across the parchment. His own name, the voice that rose within, was not a whisper anymore. It was a promise. Record what others forget, keeper of echoes. From that moment, the tome of whispers became his companion, glowing faintly at his side, awaiting new secrets to inscribe. Thistle wandered through the ballroom's cold hush. Her paw steps made no sound, yet faint laughter, distant, gentle, familiar, rippled through the stillness. She turned, but only her reflection stared back from the mirrored walls. Underneath the chandelier, she found a pendant, crystal teardrop glinting with faint light. When she lifted it, every echo she'd ever missed, every heartbeat of her friends, every unspoken word hummed inside. She pressed it close, and the pendant whispered softly, "Here beyond fear." The silence broke, music drifted faintly from nowhere, and Thistle smiled through her tears. Ash descended deeper than the others dared, drawn by the flicker of orange light. The old furnace groaned like a sleeping beast, its embers long cold, yet one coal burned faintly still. When he reached for it, a voice spoke from within the ashes, not in words, but in warmth. "Do not fear the dark. Burn brighter." The ember flared in his paw, swirling into a small flame that did not burn. Instead, it pulsed with courage. It hovered above his open hand, alive, loyal, eternal. Ash grinned. Guess I'm not afraid of the dark anymore. The manor's heart still beats. Scout has seen what lies within the dark, and now the relic calls him deeper. Beyond the sealed door, something ancient waits, something that remembers them all. Next time, our story continues. Nightroot Manor, the door between worlds. Thanks for dropping by, and thank you for subscribing.